All right, we have a new Prime Minister. Well, I don't know that it's not been official. I guess Prime Minister designate is what we could call it at this point. Prime Minister in waiting, Mark Carney, is facing a day packed with briefings as he is expected to attend his first Liberal caucus meeting since he was declared the party's new leader and Prime Minister designate yesterday in Ottawa. Like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau before him, and even opposition Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, Carney won a resounding mandate from the party base. The former central banker captured 86% of the vote. So I think it was 400,000 roughly people were eligible to vote, and the turnout was like 150-something thousand. So a lot of apathy, indifference. I'm not sure what's going on, but you would think that at a time in which the country is embroiled in a massive trade war with the U.S. and countless other challenges, that people would be highly engaged in this. But I'm just sensing that people aren't, but perhaps I'm wrong. We'll see when we open the phone lines today between 11 and 12. We'll find out what you think about all this. Do you care? Did you follow it? Are you following it? And also, of course, Pierre Poilievre called this a sneaky trick. I'm not sure what's sneaky about it. I really don't get that. Sneaky. What do you mean? They had a leadership convention and he ran and won. What's sneaky about that? I don't know. You see these attack ads on both sides. It's just brutal. You watch the attack ads from the Liberals, and they don't mention one thing about what they're going to do, or even no mention of any of their policies. And the Conservatives, same thing. All they do is slam and rip the opposition. And it's just strange. It would be kind of like going, if you were up for a job and you were going in for an interview and there were two candidates, and you knew who the other candidate was, and all you did during the interview was talk about how bad the other person is. You never mentioned one thing about yourself. That's similar to what's going on here, because for all intents and purposes, it is a job interview. But anyway, we'll open the phone lines and find out who cares about this and what you think about it and what concerns you might have, and maybe you think it's a great decision and a great move on behalf of the Liberals. Of course, there's downsides and upsides to just about everything, so we'll get into that. We'll open the phone lines, as mentioned, in about an hour's time. Hope to hear from many of you talking about this, and of course, the ongoing trade war and tariff war with the U.S. Of course, we know we beat that around a million times, but look, it's something that is pressing and front and center for sure. Thanks to Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass of the control boards, doing a fine job as always, and thanks so much for tuning in and listening. It is a Monday morning. That means one thing. That means Councillors on the hot seat. Joining me here in studio is Tony Mancini, District 6, Dartmouth East, Burnside. Tony, thanks for coming in, my friend.
My pleasure, Todd. Good to be here.
All right. It's always like Christmas when you're coming in because you always bring me gifts.
Well, it's all about rock and roll, baby.
That's right. Another vinyl album, this one by a Nova Scotia legend, Dutch Mason.
Yeah.
How old's this album anyway?
Oh, it's got to be, I would think late 70s. You look at the back of that.
Yeah.
Lots of good memories or things I probably forgot since I would be at the Misty Moon or other places listening to Dutch Mason. But, you know, he really introduced me to blues and the love of the harmonica. And his son is now an amazing guitarist, Garrett Mason. But and then later on in life, his health was bad. He struggled with addictions and booze, and he had gout. And he couldn't play the guitar anymore. Just an amazing artist. I have so many good memories of listening to Dutch Mason. I have a full Dutch Mason collection. So
you're hardcore, aren't you?
Yeah. I love it. You and I have only met in the last number of years. I used to have long hair, and it was much better when I was listening to rock and roll when I banged my head. But we have so much talent here in Atlantic Canada. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And your Bruce Springsteen box set, you left those with me for a long time. You're probably worried about those, were you?
I do. I could count on you. No problem.
I kept them safe and used them well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, and joining me on the phone is Kathryn Morris, District 10, Halifax, Bedford Basin West. Kathryn, thanks for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Todd. Pleasure to be here. Hi, Deputy Mayor. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Kathryn. Good to hear your voice.
Okay, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us if you've got questions for the councillors. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll start with you, Kathryn. Anything you want to pass along from your district that you'd like people to know about?
No, it's pretty quiet here in District 10, but thank you for asking.
Okay, Tony, how about you?
I do, but before we go there, and I have to be careful, I don't want to go into out of my lane, but your introduction to your show this morning, you talked about the Liberal leadership, and I was watching that last night, and it's amazing. I don't know how old former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien is, but he is sharp, man.
Yeah, he's on the game. He's on his game, isn't he?
Isn't he? In one of the comments he made, he said, we should present Donald Trump with the Order of Canada, because he's done more in recent history to bring the country together than anybody else. The guy is sharp. It was amazing. Right?
Yep, for sure.
But in my district, the budget, of course, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later on.
Absolutely.
We're going through that process, and later on this month, we'll be looking at where we're going to end when it comes to the budget and the taxes. And it's pothole season. And so we ask your listeners, and I know it's, the thaw, the freeze, the thaw. If they see a pothole, please call 311. We have a team that goes out and assesses them, prioritizes them. Do be careful out there. If you hit a pothole and you damage your vehicle, again, call 311. There's a possibility there may be compensation for that damage. Not automatic, but do be careful. But do call it in. We need people to call them in.
All right. Do you think that the rules for around reimbursement are wide enough? Because I hear from people saying that they don't qualify. In many cases, they tell me anecdotally that really you would think that they would.
Yeah, there is a process. Whether that process needs to be re-examined, possibly. But the idea of a pothole is been left and it's deep enough to damage your car, it definitely should be looked at. And there isn't a team of insurance people that we have. So that is the process that we have right now. So I do hear people being compensated, though I do get calls from those that don't qualify also.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Let's start with Peter, who wants to talk about potholes. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question, gentlemen. I hear this from my entire circle of influence. None of us seem to be able to understand why there's nonstop money for speed bumps, but you can drive between one speed bump and the next speed bump and take your front end out in a pothole, and the pothole is not repaired, but there's money for speed bumps. And it seems like that's upside down, and that needs to be changed. Your comments.
Peter, thank you very much. Look, it's a different budget, right? The money pool for maintaining streets and potholes comes from budget A, and then putting in speed bumps is, budget B. I hear your comments from other people, Peter, and I don't know, I don't want to assume anything, but a lot of people that make that comment just don't like the speed bumps. And the reason we have speed bumps right now is that people are driving too fast. We don't have the traffic enforcement that we once used to have, so we don't have police doing radars like they should be, and we don't have speed radar cameras just yet. So all that we have to try to maintain and slow down the traffic are the speed tables. So the potholes, there's a team out there right now filling them up. The way it works is you do need to call 311. Someone goes out and assesses. They determine how deep that pothole is, and they prioritize it. And so that is the process that we have right now. But they're two different budgets. I mean, we can make that complaint, well, why are we spending money on park benches, or why are we spending money on buses? They are two different budgets.
If I could add to that, too, this time of year, the potholes tend to be worse than any other time of year. Sometimes the patchwork that we do over the winter pops out, due to the freeze-thaw cycle. So, even the patchwork that's done doesn't always hold this time of year. So the best repairs are done once the freeze is out of the ground. In May and June, that's the best time to do repairs that will actually stick and work. So we can only do little bits of patchwork between now and then. And when people do call in, it's very much appreciated if people call in with pothole concerns, but you need to include the civic address. Without the civic address, it's not very helpful information, but with the civic address, crews can go out.
Peter?
Can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
go ahead.
So down on the eastern seaboard of the U.S., they've solved the problem. They have, it's like a 2-ton flatbed truck that has like a cherry picker arm on it, and on the end of it, they have a massive piece of equipment that's about the size of a freezer, and it works much like a microwave oven. And they do patchwork that lasts indefinitely, because what they can do, irregardless of the time of the year, they can catch potholes while they're small. They go out, clamp that down over a pothole, heat the area up so that there's no frost left in the ground and that the surrounding asphalt softens. And then they use a patch that's mixed with chopped up tires along with the asphalt. And the repairs that they do last indefinitely. Matter of fact, they outlast the entire road. And that problem was solved 20 years ago down in the U.S. And I keep hearing politicians saying, well, here's what we have, and it's not the right budget. And the problem is, it's a problem. There's a team of engineers in the city, and it's like nobody wants to fix it. So, you know what? To me, I don't mean to be too critical, folks, but to me, it's excuses. It's a problem that needs fixing. The money's there. Some money needs to be reallocated, and this problem needs to be solved.
Okay, Tony, respond, please.
Yeah, Peter, thanks very much. Look, I'm not trying to give excuses. It is what it is. However, I like the idea of new technology. I love the idea of recycled tires. We do need to look at doing it differently from that perspective. I agree, because we've been doing it the same way for years. So that's something we have. The folks who are in the middle of budget right now, the folks that do our roads will be coming back to, and Kathryn and I can both.
Sounds like a great idea, really.
Yeah. I don't know what why not investigate it? We have been doing it the same way year after year, so maybe it's time to look at new technology. Thank you for
Peter. Thanks for the call, pal.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Rick, hello.
Hi, how are you today?
We're well.
I have a question for Councillor Morse.
Okay.
Please.
Sure.
I live in Fairview, and since we're on speed bumps, at the end of my driveway, which is on the crest of a hill, coming down Melrose Avenue, they last year put a speed bump in. And instead of the one where there's a section in the middle where water can drain down, they basically created a dam. So when we get snow and then we get rain that follows up and the freezing, I get a lake, and then I get a frozen lake that comes up my driveway and out in the street. And I did call 311. They did come out as the lake was there, and they did see what the problem was. I'm wondering if I have to wait for the street to be recapitalized, and if so, when will that be? And will they readjust that at that point in time, or is there something that possibly could be done before then?
Oh, I'll look into it right away. I'm just hearing about this now, but it shouldn't be damming water like that and creating icy conditions. So you don't have to give me your address, but could you tell me roughly where this is on Melrose Avenue? There's a couple of speed humps there. So which one?
It's the lowest one, closest to the bottom of Melrose, near Cross Street.
Okay.
So, yeah. And when it does freeze over, I've seen one or two old people, like there's some apartments that are nearby, have one has taken a tumble, and one is almost just from me looking, because there's no sidewalk, as you know, in that area.
Yeah.
So when it becomes like a skating rink, unless we're handing out skates, it's a danger.
Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me know. I'll look into it right away.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for your time.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Andrew, hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
My question is for the councillor in charge. I'm not sure which councillor this would reflect on for the civic area, the Halifax Forum.
I don't know if either of you represent, but anyway, they can speak broadly to it.
Okay. Basically, both my kids play hockey, and we are at the Civic Center constantly, the Halifax Forum. There is a homeless shelter nearby, and the issue that we're dealing with is there's an abundance of used needles in the parking lot, and we've got kids going in there daily, especially now over March break. There's a lot of spring hockey camps going on. My question is, why isn't this being monitored closely? I mean, they know very well that people in these shelters are using, and just why isn't more being done to clean up the needles around the city?
Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I'm sorry to hear that's happening at the Forum. It's not in my area or Kathryn's area. There is that shelter that's in the Forum, in the multipurpose room. There is supposed to be daily patrols of the area by Mainland, which is a company, they organize a nonprofit group that looks for needles, and they dispose the needles safely. So I'll take this away, Andrew, and I'll speak to the councillor of the area, and then that should be done daily. So I don't know, did you see an increase of this, or it's always been like that?
Definitely an increase. In the past, through the winter, maybe because the snow and ice had covered it up, but basically I was there yesterday, and just on our walk from the parking lot to the doors, we saw about 4 or 5, and some of them being right outside the footsteps. If it wasn't for a parent that was on the other side of us, my son would have gotten out of the vehicle and stepped on it.
Oh, no.
Right? He had to come over to my window and say, "Don't let him get out of that side. There's a needle there." I didn't see it pulling into the parking spot, but they are most certainly there. And, both my kids, one of my kids goes to Shabukto Heights, and as the the snow has been thawing and stuff, there's been a countless number of needles showing up in the playground of all places.
Right.
And that's just,
It's unacceptable, Andrew. As soon as we finish the show here with Todd this morning, I'm at City Hall, and I'll speak to the councillor of the area and make sure that gets addressed right away. Thank you for letting us know.
Is that still Sean Cleary? Is that the councillor of that area?
No, that would I believe that would be Virginia. I believe.
I think you're right, Virginia.
Yeah. But I'll mention to her, and even if I don't get a hold of her, I'll speak to the folks that are with our homeless team and make sure they get on that right away.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us to chat with our councillors. Tony Mancini, Kathryn Morse, give us a call again, 902-405-6000. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues when we come back. All right, our councillors on the hot seat. It's Monday morning. Let's get some participation, folks. Give us a buzz if you'd like to chat with Tony Mancini or Kathryn Morse or both. You know the drill. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Bruce is giving us a call. Hello, Bruce. Bruce, are you there?
Yeah,
hi, Bruce.
I'm here, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, I'm in Porter's Lake, and I just bought a 2025 Ram 1500. I hit a pothole. I've tried for months to get some compensation on this stuff. I can't get through to anybody. I took my whole front end out. I don't know why they got to send 18 people to fill one pothole. Why can't you just send one guy with a bag of cement?
With a bag of what? Cement?
A bag of cement. Why can't you just send one guy out?
Okay, Tony?
Well, Bruce, you understand there's hundreds of potholes out there, and I'm sorry that happened to your new truck. So you haven't spoken to anybody? Let's deal with that first.
He just hung up.
Oh, so yeah. Bruce, sorry you left. You haven't spoken to somebody, do call 311. If you're not hearing from 311, you should call. I would call Becky Kent, who's the councillor of that area, I believe. And so, crews go out, they inspect it, and then they fill them in based on priority. So without knowing more details, Bruce, I'm sorry to hear that happened to your big truck, but you call 311 and the councillor.
It's got to be frustrating, though. I mean, you understand the frustration, though, right?
Absolutely.
So when you say call 311, some people have suggested that they've not got anywhere by that. Is that perhaps understaffed? Under what's going on with that?
It's volume. I don't think they're understaffed. There's a full team there, and sometimes I know you hear 311 a lot in your show.
Yeah, we hear that often referred to.
I'll bring you to that the tour the place maybe after your morning show. There's a good crew there that do good work. This time of year, there's a volume issue, right? So they may get a lot of calls coming.
Why not hire more people then to deal with it?
Well, then your caller is going to say, "Oh, our tax rate is going up. Hire more people." Right?
Well, I hear you, but I mean, this grassroots politics is where you're at, and this is, somebody hits a pothole, their first thing they think of, who's my councillor, and they're mad.
Yep, and they should be. I mean, mine too. If I ran my car into a pothole and damaged my car, so they are getting to it. It may not seem fast enough, but they are getting to it.
Kathryn, do you have anything to add to this? Probably not much, but anything to add to this?
Oh.
Kathryn? Kathryn might be on mute. Kathryn, are you on mute? Oh, we lost Kathryn. All right, Vanessa will get a hold of Kathryn. 902-405-6000. Let's talk to Lori. Hello, Lori.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. You?
Doing okay. I have, I just found this out recently. So, the province has a secondary suite and backyard suite program whereby they will reimburse 50% of costs up to $40,000. So if it's $100,000, that it costs you $40,000. If it's 60, 30, etc. So I thought this would be a good way. It's for like affordable housing. So I thought that would be a good way to ensure that my semi-adult children are kind of able to take advantage of living on their own, but not, paying $2,000 a month for an apartment. So I called. I thought everything was okay, and then I found out that Bedford doesn't apply because of a development agreement that is out there that there's too many homes in Bedford. So for me, when I'm looking at it and looking at, the municipality is trying to do. And I did call my councillor to ask about it, and he also said, he had heard about it a couple of weeks ago when somebody was called with the exact same issue because they wanted to put in an in-law suite for their elderly.
Oh, sorry. That was my fault. Anyway, call back, Lori. I apologize. I just locked in Kathryn Morrison dropped your call. Give us a call back. Sorry, Lori. Anything, Tony? Did you get enough information out of that to?
Yeah, so I'm not that familiar with that Bedford area and why they have the rules on that, because the intent is secondary suites, in-law suites is a good way to add more units to the need. So there are different rules in different areas. So she sounds like she did speak to Jean Saint-Amand, who is the councillor.
Yeah, she just called back there. I'll put her back on. My apologies. As soon as Vanessa locks her in. There you go. Sorry, Lori. Monday morning, my bad. Go ahead. Finish up your thought.
No, that's okay. So I looked up the development agreement. I'm one of those kind of people, and I looked through it, and it from what my reading, but I'm no counselor or lawyer or anything like that, it looks like I should be able to. So it's frustration on part of the residents trying to, provide affordable housing. And the other argument is, well, if you have enough money, just do it yourself. For sure, but why should I not be able to take advantage of things that the government, puts forth? Like I said to my counselor, I have solar panels on my house, and then 2 years later they come out with a different program that, it'll be interest-free, and I switch from oil to a heat pump, and 2 years later, you can get that for free. So, all these things that, you're trying to improve your home, make things more cost efficient, but there's all these bureaucratic obstacles. So, why Bedford?
Yeah, Lori, it sounds like it's Tony here. It sounds like you're doing all the right things. Solar panels, trying to help out with your kids. I question my kids. I don't know how they're going to afford that first house. So
exactly.
What you're doing is bang on. So I don't know enough about Bedford specifically, but so you were approved by the provincial program, but you weren't approved by the municipality to actually do this secondary suite. Is that correct?
I'll stop you, Tony. There,
Sorry.
no, because I didn't apply I was getting all the information, and one of the first things you have to do before you apply, I would be approved. Like I wouldn't imagine I wouldn't be approved. All the things are there. I have enough. Financially, I can do it. Is what I meant. But I couldn't because the city planning people called back and said, no, Bedford is not a zone that you're allowed to put a secondary suite in.
Yeah, so, you spoke to Jean Saint-Amand. So, Lori, if you want to do this, I don't know enough of the details. If you want to email me, and there is a team that's looking at secondary suites and looking at appeals to it. If you want to email me at tony.mancini@halifax.ca, I'll get one of those folks to maybe just at least take a look at it. Don't know if we can do anything, but they should have a second look at it. So
okay, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, Lori, thank you.
Okay, Lori, thanks for the call. Take care.
Thanks
all right.
902-405-6000.
That is the way to reach us if you'd like to chat with our councillors. We've got Tony Mancini here in studio. Kathryn Morris on the line again. 902-405-6000. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues when we come back. All right, our councillors on the hot seat. Tony Mancini's here in studio. Kathryn Morris is on the line. Give us a call if you'd like to chat with one or both of the councillors. 902-405-6000. That is the way to get in on the action. Kathy, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well.
Good. I have a question regarding new apartment builds. Sam Austin has been pushing this idea of only having one stairwell in a 6-story apartment building to save cost. And I have a real problem with that because I think it's unsafe to have that. So he says that you can have, you can only put, say you put 19 units in, and have one stairwell. But then those units, they're not going to be cheaper, and you're not going to have enough in a 33, say you had an apartment building with 33 units in it, 19, you're going to have to build another building in order to, it's not going to help the housing crisis. To me, it's just a very unsafe way to build an apartment building, and I wanted to get Councillors' view on that.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kathy, for that. Yeah, I'm well aware of what Councillor Austin's doing. I think he saw the model in New York City, where single-stair buildings had zero impact on fire safety, and it was cheaper to build a building. So the rationale is that then the rent may be not as high for people. I have some concerns with it also. I know that Councillor Austin is big on bringing this forward, and I speak to our fire department, and they're opposed to it also, because you need to have two ways. You need to be able to get in and having a different way to get out in case there's a fire. So it seems to have worked in some areas, but I'm concerned here, Kathy. So we'll see if when that comes in front of us. But my conversations with our fire department, they're not in favor of it.
Yeah, it just seems to be, the last thing you want to do is put people's lives in danger, and this just seems to be a very dangerous thing to do.
It's worth looking at it, Kathy. I mean, but I'm concerned also. So we'll take a look at it, and we'll see where it lands.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Kim, hello.
Hi, how are you this morning?
We're doing well.
I have a little rant, and it's directed to the deputy mayor. It's with regard to the Sheet Harbour Lifestyle Complex, which is to be broken ground on this year, and it's basically being built to replace the Lion Centre, and it was originally named the Lifestyle building, which gave hope to our Eastern Shore community that we'd have a building which would enhance the lives of the shore residents. Instead, we basically got a municipal building which will house all the government offices that they needed new space for. The fire department, which we needed a replacement of a fire department. And I might add that the fire department sucked up all the space, leaving not much for the remaining offices. Nothing for our youth. One pickleball court. The HRM existing gym will also move there, and it'll be in a much smaller space than it exists now. And I might add that the fire department are getting their own gym. The building will hold approximately 250 people and has space for 75 vehicles, minus the fire department parking. Through the chamber, the Board of Trade in our community, we have raised money for this endeavor, thinking we would be on the tail end of something great for our community. Instead, we got a municipal building. I'm sure it was a one-shot deal. We probably won't qualify for anything above that for many, many years. And no one was listening at the public meetings, and frustration set in. And now there's very little interest within the community for what we will see built. And that is the Eastern Shore has been suppressed for years, and the community together we've banded and raised I don't know how many thousands of dollars to go into this. And the original specs depicted an attractive-looking building, as other communities have, and claims we'd have space which would house most of the local organizations as their buildings were getting old and needed repairs, and community space which would include something that would enhance the lifestyle of our young and our aging community. Instead, we have a so-called lifestyle building that is actually a municipal building, and I'd like to know why. It's too late now because the ground is to be broken on it in the next few months, but so disappointing, and I'd like to know. Okay,
all right. I think you framed it well. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, Kim, thank you very much for the call. Look, Kathryn and I have heard about the Sheet Harbour Lifestyle Building a lot because your councillor, as you know, is Councillor David Hensby, who I'm sure is listening right now. And we know it was going to be a library, community centre, and now a fire department. So there's been lots of zigging and zagging on it. So There's not much I can really comment on it because we're taking that lead from Councillor Hensby, who's been a big advocate of that Sheet Harbour Lifestyle Centre. I'm sure that he'll chime in because he is listening. I know that he just texted me on a previous caller issue on Porter's Lake. So I don't know if Kathryn, you have anything to add, but I'm sure Councillor Hensby will give some comments, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you calling in about this.
Okay, Kathryn, go ahead. Kathryn wants to chime in. Kim, go ahead, Kathryn.
I just wanted to say thank you for calling in about this. I wasn't aware that so much of the building was going to be taken up by municipal offices. That's kind of a surprise to me. I know there were some concerns that the library had about some of the soil toxicity, I believe, around the site. So there were some of those concerns about the use of the outside as a public space. So that was the only concern I had about having some public facilities in that building, especially if the outside was going to be used.
Even at the last public meeting that they had here, the parking issue was brought up. Why have a building that's going to have 250 capacity and have parking for 75 vehicles, of which some of them would be taken up by the fire department. And there were two landowners that lived in the immediate or had property in the immediate area, and they even lied at the meeting and said that they contacted the two people to see if the land was for sale, and those two individuals were never contacted with regard to space for parking. It just it's left a real bad feeling in our community. We got nothing. Our youth has nothing, and the existing Lion Center that is going to be replaced with that building it was, the community hub, and now we have a small space that will be used for all the organizations, volunteer and otherwise, to use.
Okay, I'm not sure anything else to add, Tony, or?
No, sorry.
Okay. All right, Kim, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care.
Todd, if I may, Councillor Hensby did text me when Bruce, if you're still listening, the guy with the Ram 1500, that's in Porter's Lake, is his area. So he's suggesting you let him know where that pothole is. He's also suggesting, depending on where it is, it may also be a provincial road that you're on.
Highway,
it still has to be taken care of, Bruce. But let Councillor Hensby know, and he'll follow up.
Okay, 902-405-6000. Robin, hello. Hi, Robin.
Good morning.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to mention that I live in Kathryn Morse's district, number 10. And I was at an event last weekend at which I was introduced to a gentleman who works on behalf of the city filling the potholes in our street. Happened to mention that we often see, one pothole fixed and a flurry of others in the area that aren't. And he advised me that they are given their list of potholes to fix every day, and that if they see others around that are equally in bad condition but haven't been reported, they're not allowed to just go ahead and fix that. They have to leave those and move on to the next one that's on their list for the day, be it 6 or 10. I wonder if, while you're looking at new options to fill potholes, if there could be some a possibility for those who are already there and seeing them and knowing that they have to be reported and then they'll come back, for them to reduce that extra work and time and just go ahead and fill those themselves. I'm going to go ahead and hang up and listen for responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathryn, I think that was directed to you, was it?
Yeah, sure. I think what may be happening here is we have different priorities of potholes depending on the size. So there's a standard to, the bigger potholes, the deeper potholes are priority 1, and the shallower potholes are priority 2. And so the standard is for priority 1 potholes to be filled first, and then priority 2. So this may be what the caller is referring to. I certainly understand the perception that this might not be the most efficient way to do things, and perhaps there's a way to Tony and I can work on to get the standard looked at or reviewed at least, because if you're sending crews out, to do one priority 1 pothole and they find some priority 2 potholes, maybe they should all be done at the same time.
Yeah.
I take the point, but I think there is a standard in place related to the severity and size of the pothole.
Okay, Tony, you have anything to add to this?
Bang on. I understand the frustration. It doesn't, we're talking about common sense, which sometimes is not that common. And so it makes sense if I'm there and I'm fixing A and I see B, why not fix it while I'm there too? But I think Kathryn will follow up and I'll help her with that.
Okay. 902-405-6000. We get some time for you and some room for you to the top of the hour with the councillors. Again, 902-405-6000. We'll be back. All right, continuing with our councillors to the top of the hour. Tony Mancini's here in studio. Kathryn Morse is on the line. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Carlos, hello.
Hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. I'm just wondering about the letter that was sent last year to the province about developers not paying fines. As far as I remember, there was about 250,000 total amount of fines that were not being paid by the developers. And I'm just wondering if the city has heard back from the province, and if not, if they're planning to follow up with that. Thank you.
Okay.
I can take this one, Todd.
Sure.
This was something I pursued with a motion that got passed through council. I was looking for HRM to collect on fines owing from developers who had been found guilty of various charges. And it turns out that for most of the fines, they go through provincial court, and the provincial court has to make the effort to collect the fines and then forward them to HRM. So in this particular case, the fine had not been collected. I think it's now 4 or 5 years.
Right. And if you find that these fines are not being paid at all, is there something to do that the city can stop offering license or anything like this?
Yeah, I tried that as well. I tried through a motion through council to see if HRM could refuse to provide development permits for businesses and developers who owe money in unpaid fines, and we were told that the legislation of the provincial legislation does not allow HRM that discretion. So we are still working with the province and requesting that they collect these fines for HRM.
Okay.
Okay, Carlos, thanks for the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. Let's see where we're going next. Let's talk to Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Todd. Thanks for taking my call, and I appreciate the councillors as well. So I have it's a very, very serious topic, okay? I've lived downtown for about 9 years now, and the crime here, and I'm talking about violent crime, okay, it's off the rails. We had somebody who I had interactions with stab a 6-year-old. Okay, I think you guys are aware of this. Oh, yeah. I just want to know why there isn't more police enforcement, and why are we allowing this to happen? Why are we allowing people to smoke crack in public? I've seen it. Okay, do drugs, be violent. I got to go offline because it makes me so emotional, so I'll let the councillors address it, and thank you very much.
Okay, Mark,
Goodbye.
thank you. All right, Tony, very serious, and you can hear how much he's impacted by this, right?
Yeah, big time. Actually, our crime stats are actually down. However, some of the violent crimes are there.
What's the latest on those crime stats? I mean,
I was just looking at that too, and I'll send it while we're finished here, and I'll make sure you have it. So but we just got a report to the Board of Police Commission.
So it's up to date, is it?
It is up to date, so I'll flip it to you right as soon as I find it. But they're down, and so I hear it in Mark's voice, and we've heard a number of incidents. They just announced the arrest. Remember last summer where those 2 young girls were walking hand in hand, and they got beat up, and they arrested the people involved, and we've heard a number of incidents. The young man that was killed in the shopping center parking lot, and There was arrests for that. So there are an increase in crime. The frustration about the seeing the drugs, those strong drugs, the crack or the needles, we see more of that happening now. At the same time, we're talking about police and increasing the police budget. And, Mark, there was lots of opposition to that. I mean, I sit on a police board, and a lot of people want us to take money away from the police department. So there is that balance. So I believe our city is safe. However, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of work to be done, and we're trying to improve that very strongly so that what you witnessed, Mark, doesn't happen.
Kathryn, what would you like to add to this?
Well, in the case that the caller referred to about the stabbing, there was a comment online by someone who identified themselves as the mother of the person charged, saying that she had been trying for a long time to get help through the provincial mental health care system and had not been able to get help for her child. So I think some of this is related to needing much better mental health supports through the provincial healthcare system.
Right. Well, again, we continue to have these conversations, and look, I know statistics are what they are, but Tony, back to you on that one. I mean, how do you keep statistics of how many people are doing drugs in public and how many needles are laying around and some of these things, I don't know, are being measured, are they?
They are. I just found it, and I will share this too. The crimes against people, homicides are decreased. Attempted murders have increased from 3 to 6 in this past year. There's 67 fewer assaults. We have a crisis when it comes to intimate partner violence right now. That's gone up. And so we're working at the Board of Police Commission and really bringing forward the focus that's needed. And there's that balance of where do you spend policing money? Kathryn alluded to the mental health issues. Now we're looking at a team that's a civilian-led team that will go in and do wellness checks, not police. So police can actually work on police work. Yeah. So a lot of this work is happening. Again, I really believe our municipality is safe, but there's definitely issues, and then we have to focus on those.
Okay. Glenn, hello.
Hi. I have a quick question, Todd. I won't keep you. I know I only got a couple minutes.
Sure.
What is the story on scooters? Why are they allowed to be on the sidewalks? No helmets, no license. Someone's going to get very seriously hurt. And who will be liable?
Okay. Kathryn?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's difficult to stay ahead of some of these technology changes as they're happening. We have been looking at scooters and how to regulate them. It's kind of a work in progress, I would say, at the moment.
Tony, anything to add to that?
Not much. I mean, there's the Motor Vehicle Act that lines up with that. Helmets are supposed to be wearing helmets, but so are people riding bikes supposed to be wearing helmets. Yeah. But yet, as Mark calls in earlier and talked about, violent crime, and so are cops going to be pulling people over on scooters or on bikes, or are they going after the more violent crime? There's that balance. We look at other cities. Scooters are part of other cities too, but when we have scooters going too fast on the sidewalk, it can be dangerous also.
Yeah. Okay, let's get. Glenn, did that answer your question at all, or?
Really, Todd, but I'm going to call back next week when I have more time for you.
Okay,
so thank
pal.
you.
All right, take care. All right, David, quickly, if you can, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Just a quick comment here. I think the councillors should go back to the table with the other councillors, and as far as the potholes goes and the damage to the roads, and look at the tonnage of the plows, Tony. Look at the weight restriction.
Did you say tonnage of the plows?
Tonnage of the plows. Oh.
Yes, the tonnage of the plows. It's 39,000 pounds is the restriction here. And I've seen plows go through my neighborhood, Tony, with a tandem wheel, loaded with salt, with a wing blade, and a heavy plow, pounding and smashing the manhole covers and the curbs. I think the trucks are too big. I think it's something you got to look at. I think they're overweight and causing damage to the roads.
And I've heard that before.
Well, I watch it. I can send you a video. A municipal truck that should be on a highway is plowing a suburban road, and it's banging and smashing, and it's overweight with a 16-foot by 4-foot plow in the front, and it's way too heavy for the roads. it's popping out even repaired ones that were done in the summer, and a lot of these potholes aren't potholes from frost and freezing and popping out. A lot of them aren't that. A lot of them are already been repaired and they're being damaged. And I think our city's trucks, the small yellow single axle trucks, are under the weight. A lot of them carry a small amount of salt. They have a smaller blade on the front, and they're designed for that. But these big red trucks by Ocean and Municipal plowing our city streets are way too heavy, and they're over the 39,000-pound limit for the restriction.
Okay, interesting, David.
Yeah, it is, and it's something you should look at, councillors, and I think it's causing damage and causing us to fix an extra money because these contractors are using the wrong equipment.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thanks,
Tony,
David.
quickly, anything on
thanks,
that?
David. Something to look at. I never even thought of it. Thank you.
Kathryn, similar?
Good point. Thank you very much for calling in about that.
Okay, Kathryn, thank you for doing this. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Tony Mancini, thanks for coming in. Thanks for the Dutch Mason album as well. Appreciate it, pal.
My pleasure. Rock on.
Okay, that's great. Councillors on the hot seat, your calls when we come back. All right, time for your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. What would you like to talk about on this Monday? Mark Carney is the Prime Minister designate, I guess we could call him that, Prime Minister in waiting. Not exactly sure what the details are when he'll be sworn in, but we assume it'll be sometime this week. Easily winning the Liberal leadership race by 86% of the vote, just blowing away the field. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that Mark Carney is an upgrade from Justin Trudeau, or do you think that they're one and the same? That is, of course, how the Conservatives are painting Mark Carney as just another version of the current government or of the outgoing Prime Minister. And saying that, of course, he had his fingerprints on the economic footprint of this government, and that's a good argument, really, considering Mark Carney was a trusted advisor for at least 3 or 4 or 5 years to Justin Trudeau. But look, some people think that Mark Carney is an upgrade because of his pedigree, because of his resume, because of the fact that he was the governor of Bank of Canada and England, and that impresses some people, not everybody, but some people that impresses. And again, certainly when it comes to what he's done and his resume, it looks on the surface at least impressive, but he's got some downside as well, of course. There's some controversy about him moving one of his key businesses to the United States and some controversy about what he knew, what he didn't know. So what are your thoughts in general on Mark Carney? An upgrade? Is this good for Canada? And what about to the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre? Who would you think is better positioned to lead this country in troubled times? Because we are on the doorstep of a federal election. I would say that that's definitely going to happen this spring. 902-405-6000. You can get into that or anything else you'd like to talk about. Again, 902-405-6000. Something else just quickly that I wanted to throw out there. Canada's Minister of International Development unveiled over nearly $300 million in new funding on yesterday for foreign aid projects in Bangladesh and the Indo-Pacific region. The money to be spent alongside contributions from other foreign partners and donors will provide new funding for 14 different projects in Bangladesh and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. This, of course, at a time when the Americans and the Donald Trump administration are pulling back in a big time way from this type of funding. So another question that I'll ask you to think about, do you support foreign aid spending? Is it a responsibility as a G7 nation to help citizens in countries where abject poverty is entrenched? Is it a common characteristic of a progressive nation? Or do you think we should focus more on domestic issues, homelessness, poverty, food insecurity, no shortages of need right here in Canada? What are your thoughts on this, folks? That or anything else you want to talk about? 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Jim's giving us a call. Hello, Jim.
Good morning, Todd. How you doing?
Well, you?
Good, thanks. I'm happy as can be.
Wow, because because why?
Well, because Carney won the Liberal leadership, and being a Liberal voter, I was quite pleased last night. He made it quite clear that at 86%, or pretty well at 86, that it's his party. and he's going to make some big changes. There's an old Russian saying that, ironically, that says that liars have short legs. You ever hear that expression?
No, I don't.
Okay, liars have short legs. That means they don't last long. They can't run very far, and they don't last long. So that would apply to Trump. And I think that Carney more or less said that last night. That I think if you're going to take somebody to go against Trump, which is our main concern right now, you might as well have the A team and not the B team. And you know who the B team is, in my opinion, is the Poilievre team.
Did you take part? Did you vote in this thing, Jim?
Oh my God, yes! It took me a week.
Yeah.
Which was frustrating at first, but we finally got that under control.
Why did it take you a week? What happened? What happened? Why did it take a week to vote?
What happened was when we were doing it by our phone, like some of the directions would say, do certain things on your phone for your ID, and then you would take it to the post office, and every time I did, for some reason, it was shown that it wasn't valid. And all it was originally my name when I registered many years ago was James F. Hoskins, and I changed it to Jim Hoskins, believe it or not. So they kept kicking out James F. Hoskins, but it all came to a resolution, and I was able to vote. So I was quite pleased with that. So once you do get accepted to vote, it was like 30 seconds. It was no problem at all.
Do you think this is an upgrade from Justin Trudeau?
Oh, most definitely. See, Justin Trudeau was there for 10 years, and Justin had a policy. That's why Freeland quit. Matter of fact, I don't know if you noticed it last night, but she got a few boos when she walked in last night. And the reason is because she's the reason they had a convention last night, because she took down the government, basically when she resigned. But what was happening with Justin Trudeau was that he was centralizing all the control in his own office instead of delegating all the responsibilities that he said ministers would have. And that was the budget he wanted to put in with the I think it was $250. I can't remember per Canadian and all kinds of stuff. But he was directing that directly from his office and ignoring the cabinet, where he would sit down with cabinet and make those decisions. Carney says he's not going to do that, so I'm encouraged by that. So I was quite happy last night, and they had a good crowd too. So now I think, to be honest with you, some of my sources that I do know from my days past in politics is that the election is imminent, if I can use that word.
Sure.
And I think that they're going to swear Mark in, I would probably say he's meeting with his cabinet today, give him Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday would be the latest. He'll be sworn in by the Governor General.
Jim, what about concerns of people who say that Mark Carney's had his fingerprints all over this government and economic policy for the past 4 or 5 years as a trusted advisor? I think there's some legitimacy to that pushback. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's no question that he was advising Trudeau at some point in time, but he also advised...
Well, not at some point in time. He was an advisor. That's on the record, Jim.
Oh, yeah, I just said that. I don't know how long it was, but certainly he was. Yeah, he was advising him for a while, for sure. But he also advised Harper at Harper's request as well, and was well thought of, too. I just watched the tape where Harper is praising the ability of Carney and helping him. So I don't know how much weight that's going to pull with the Canadian public. I think most people I talk to are, there are some are saying that Poilievre is the savior, but when I talk to other people, it looks as though, in my own opinion, is that the enemy now for sure is Trudeau. And I think
Trudeau.
Not Trudeau. Trump in the States, and he's the primary target now. And I think Canadians are looking to protect our sovereignty and everything else. We're going to need somebody like Carney at the helm. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay,
so it's going to be a good match, but I think he'll be sworn in before the end of the week, and an election is just around the corner.
Okay, Jim, appreciate it. Take care, pal.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. All right, 902-405-6000. Hello, Doug.
Hello.
Hi there. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just don't know. Let's the other fella on there going on. I don't think Carney's any good. I don't like the way they've done this. They pick a guy, put him in, they vote, and he gets in there. That's all been fixed. The New World Order's coming down. Everything I said 40 years ago falls right into place. If we don't get Pierre Poilievre in next election, we're finished. Now, I got another news flash for you. Next year, US of A is going to be taking over this country.
Okay.
I don't want to live in a commune.
All right, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Let's talk to Chris. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Todd.
Hi there.
Gee, Jim's buoyant today, isn't he? Jim, you probably got your ankle weights on to keep yourself from floating up to the ceiling or something high. I'm just joking. I like Jim, but he and I have different political views.
Sure.
But I wish that he'd said what Carney brings to the table that's going to make him so good to fight against Trump. Everybody's saying this, and it's just rhetoric as far as I'm concerned. I do think that Pierre would be the strongest person to handle Trump. He's a pit bull, we know that. And I don't think he'd pull any punches. He'd be a harder guy to deal with for Trump than Carney. As far as your foreign aid thing, I think we need to take care of Canadians first. When we're in a position to look after our own country, and there's nobody starving, there's nobody dying on the streets, there's nobody dying of fentanyl, et cetera, all the problems we're going through, that people have a decent living, they have homes to live in, then we can look abroad to help them out.
Well, it'll never happen, Chris. That utopia that you described is never going to happen.
That's right. But don't you agree it would be better if we cut back on the foreign aid and concentrated more on our own country?
Well, I don't know that it's that simple of a question, to be honest with you, Chris. I don't know. I think that I get your point. I really do, and I think on the surface, I would agree with you. But that would, if we waited for a utopian and perfectionism, we would never support anybody globally.
No, you're right there, absolutely. But how do you even get close to a utopian situation if you're constantly given these vast amounts of money, and we don't really even know how much money is going out there and where it's going from? And in many cases,
that's the point you're raising that I agree with 100%.
Yeah, and it's going to countries in many cases where the corruption is so bad. Are the actual people in need getting any of it?
That's a great point.
And what percentage are they getting?
And these NGOs, non-government organizations, how much waste is embedded in those organizations?
Well, Todd, you can answer your own question there. Yeah. How much waste is embedded in regular government?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's right.
But anyway, look, that's not really what I called about. And I know you're getting close to break, but I had a couple of important points here I wanted to make if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
I listened a bit to the Liberal convention last night, or whatever you want to call it, the coronation.
Yeah.
And Jean Chrétien said something that I think we should pay very good attention to. And he suggested that Canada should put, and I'm quoting now, that Canada should put export tariffs on oil, gas, potash, steel, aluminum, and electricity. And with that money, this is the important part, and with that money, Canadians could build a natural gas pipeline from Alberta to Quebec, which would keep steel workers working in Canada for a long time. That's a direct quote. Now, Quebec already has a couple of pipelines going in. One is the Enbridge 9 that goes to Montreal. So they're already getting their refineries supplied from out west. That's already on the table. But the largest refinery in Canada, Irving, he didn't mention. It stopped in his conversation or his comment. The pipeline stops at Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
That simply, to me, underscores that the Liberals will never help Atlantic Canada. Their only thought is to pandering to Quebec and, of course, Ontario as well. That's where the votes are. I get all that. But we on the East Coast were continually taken for granted by the federal Liberals. Oh, they'll kiss butt to get votes around voting time. They'll all be at your door bending over to help you out. But when it comes to actually allowing us to get ahead, it is not going to happen, in my opinion. Carney has also said that he'll pause the consumer carbon tax. Not remove it, but pause it. He's also going to put the carbon tax on business and industries, which we know will trickle down to us. And as well, a carbon tax on imports from countries that, in his opinion, are not doing enough to fight climate change. Now, that's nowhere near what Pierre Poilievre is saying he's going to do. Pierre Poilievre is saying he's going to axe the tax, remove it completely, and we're done with it. So the typical Liberal fashion, hide taxes and other things and hope that no one notices. But I got a new slogan the Liberals federally should use. Liberal, the party of liars and cheats. That's my opinion.
Okay, Chris, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Mark Carney. Is Mark Carney an upgrade for the Liberals and for the country as Prime Minister? How long will he be the Prime Minister for? That we don't know because we don't know when an election will be called, but we can assume it's going to be sometime very soon. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are suggesting that this is a what's the term they're using? Sneaky trick. Yeah, that's right. They're calling it a sneaky trick. Why? I still don't understand that. What's sneaky about it? They had a convention he ran and won. I'm not sure why that's sneaky. Perhaps they're concerned. Obviously they are, because polling numbers would indicate that it's a boost for the Liberals. Some of you out there would question pollsters and suggest that polling is not an accurate reflection as to exactly what's going on. 902-405-6000. So what's your take on this? Who do you think is best positioned to steer the country through troubled waters? Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney, or none of the above? 902-405-6000. You can talk about that. I threw the question out there about foreign aid spending because on yesterday, the Minister of International Development unveiled nearly $300 million in new funding for foreign aid projects in Bangladesh and the Indo-Pacific region. This at a time when the United States is pulling back big time on foreign aid. So do you think that we should focus on our own issues here at home, homelessness, poverty, insecurity, food shortages right here at home in Canada before we spend money on foreign aid? Or do you feel as though that foreign aid is a necessity and a responsibility of any G7 nation? It's a responsibility to help citizens in other countries when abject poverty is entrenched. 902-405-6000. Mary, hello.
Oh, good morning.
Hi there.
Hi. I don't want to vote for either of them, but, there's a cliche saying that the blind leading the blind. And boy, are we ever blind here in Canada.
Why do you say that, Mary?
Well, when Trudeau went down to have his meeting with Trump, he come back and he quit. Then Trump just do away with the penny. Now we got a banker that's going to try to run Canada, or maybe I don't know. But, it's all about money and budgeting and all the debt and all this here stuff. So, and we got a criminal, that he's working with, which is the president of the United States. Boy, the blind are blind, I can tell you. But you know what? When that last man said about the liars, now, that's in the Bible. God says all men are liars. You can't trust them. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks for the call. 902-405-6000. Hello, Jeff.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
If you allow me, I'd like to take a couple minutes to kind of drift away from the political arena and focus more at home. I'm concerned about the inconsistency of crosswalk safety. Down by the Victoria General Hospital, the crosswalk has these neon, these brightly lit yellow lights that any driver would have to see if someone's crossing. A lot of drivers, I will admit, drive like they stole the car and they don't have time to stop, and I'm not defending the driver at all. On the other hand, I'm not defending the crosswalker either, because a lot of them specifically will push the button and without looking left or right, presume there's a shield between the car and them and will walk straight out. I've witnessed almost accidents where a car didn't have the time to stop and they come out from behind the telephone pole and they walk directly out, most of whom are talking on their cell phone, not being attentive to the driver.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I notice a lot of the crosswalks, some may have a basket on each end with a neon orange or red flag, but that doesn't apply to the crosswalk down the road. I just wish there was more of a, if you're going to do one, do them all with the same technique to provide safety. And I guess that's the extent of my comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, make some valid points. Thanks for the call, Jeff. Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. He's absolutely correct. People will just press the button and just start walking without looking either way. And I get it that we as I shouldn't say we, sometimes that's me as a pedestrian, obviously. But the person driving the vehicle has the ultimate responsibility because you're operating a motor vehicle. But you can't assume that somebody's going to stop. You're going to lose that battle between you walking and any vehicle. You will lose. And absolutely, you gotta look around. You can't assume that somebody sees you. It's like defensive driving with a car. You have to drive defensively and assume that the person doesn't see you or isn't going to pull out in front of you. That's the way. So I agree with him 100%. too many times people just simply just stroll out in front of vehicles. It happens all the time. And luckily, we see the vast majority of the time, the person operating the motor vehicle is on the ball and stops. But listen, the stakes are too high. You're not going to win the battle between a vehicle if you're a pedestrian. 902-405-6000. Give us a call. What's on your mind on this Monday? Again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, taking your calls. So to reach us, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. We have a new Prime Minister in waiting. It is Mark Carney. How long he'll be the Prime Minister for? Well, that is anybody's guess at this point. Depending on which poll you look at, it's going to be pretty tight, I think, and this is something that the Conservatives weren't anticipating. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives desperately wanted Justin Trudeau to stay in power because I think they would have had an easy victory. But now there have been wrinkles thrown into their plan, and it's Mark Carney who has a different resume, a different pedigree. Some would say he's more or less the same thing. Carbon tax Carney, that's the derogatory phrase that they've conjured up. Didn't take a whole lot of imagination to come up with that one. A little alliteration on the C's, of course. What are your thoughts on Mark Carney? Do you think that he's going to be is he an upgrade from Justin Trudeau, or do you think he's more or less the same thing? And who do you think of the two between Poilievre and Carney? Who do you think would be best positioned to steer us through troubled waters, which are certainly a result of what's going on, not only but amplified in a big time way by Donald Trump? 902-405-6000. Don, hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm well, you?
Good, thank you. I just want to comment on Chris's comments about foreign aid, and he wants foreign aid perhaps reduced.
Yep.
Todd, I'm not aware of any great deed I performed in a previous life to afford me the luxury of being born in Canada. It's pure luck that I was born in Canada rather than a country like Bangladesh in poverty. Simply luck. So I think it's immoral for affluent nations, not to try to take care of poor countries. I think it's simply immoral. And people who claim to be Christian or religious, for them to want a reduction in foreign aid, I think is terrible. I'm willing, as long as the money is spent well and it's not wasted and there's good thought put into it, I believe it should be perhaps the first priority of any wealthy nation, not the last. What Trump is doing, for example, is disgusting. And I'm a big fan of foreign aid, provided it's managed well and there's good oversight and it's not wasted.
Well, that's the big question, though, Don. We know that it probably is. I shouldn't say we know. I would say that we know that it too often it is not well spent and is wasted.
No, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, the waste is horrendous.
Yeah.
But aren't we? I find it ironic. We can put a man on the moon. We can have cell phones and talk to people in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
A phone in front of you, and yet we can't figure out how to control spending and audit spending and make sure it's spent well.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the million-dollar question. So I'm a big fan of foreign aid, Todd, and honest to God, I would pay more taxes if it's used effectively.
Don, what about the argument that people have, and I think there's some legitimacy to it, that we've got lots of homelessness and encampments and all types of challenges are all around us here domestically. What's your response to that, Don?
Todd, when people talk about homelessness and that, I agree there is. But if you step back, it's the number of people homeless. I'm not aware of the percentage, but it may be less than 0.5%. So with the foreign aid, of course you take care of the homeless. Our priority should be to take care of people in need. That should be the number one priority, not to figure out ways to reduce tax or improve business processes. It should be to take care of the needy. And by the way, I'm agnostic. I'm not religious, saying this from a religious point of view. But I just think we've got to start. The number one priority is taking care of the needy, including those in other countries.
Don, don't you think, though, that having a resilient tax base and a robust economy is, if that's priority one, then you can take part of priority two. I mean, if your economy's in the tank and business is in the tank, you're going to have much less resources to do what you're advocating for, are you not?
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing, kind of.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with that, and you've got to try to make sure. But I tend to think that countries, and again, it's only by accident of birth. I was born in Canada. I have the privilege of living here. It still should be a main priority. Do those things you're mentioning well,
right?
And theoretically, a country will have the funds to take care of foreign aid. Yeah. But very often they put foreign aid on the back burner, and it's not a priority.
Yeah, I would say, Don, if the public knew that there was lots of transparency when it comes to foreign aid, and the public had confidence that the waste was as minimal as possible, because you're never going to eliminate it, then the appetite for foreign aid would be stronger, though. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree 100%, Tom.
Yeah.
But sometimes, though, I think people have misinformation, and they don't realize, we do talk about waste, but we don't know the amount of waste. It may not be a high percentage. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But if we had good information and better broadcasting of what is done and what is spent,
sure,
I think we'd be in better shape.
Okay, Don. Appreciate the call. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Todd.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Debbie's a first-time caller. Hello, Debbie.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing well.
So you asked about Mark Carney, and do I feel he's sort of similar to Trudeau? How's he different from Poilievre?
Yeah.
I'm neither liberal nor conservative. I truly vote at the time for. I'm a small C conservative, fiscal conservative, maybe social liberal. I think right now Canada is facing a true existential threat to our economic health and our sovereignty. And now is the time for positive attitudes and unity. And I truly believe Mark Carney provides that. I feel like Pierre Poilievre, his entire career has been in politics, in negative, in rhetoric, in calling people.
Debbie, let me interrupt you, but have you seen the attack ads that the Liberals have put together on Poilievre?
I have now. I don't know that Mark Carney approved those. We'll see what happens.
Well, I was going to say, you tell me one shred of positivity that's in those ads, and conversely, the Conservatives attack ads on Carney as well. But neither of these parties look to me like they're playing a fair or give a damn about any of what you're saying. That's just my take, Debbie. What's yours?
I'd like to see now what happens now that Carney has the leadership. The fact that 86% of the Liberal delegates voted for him and he won in the first ballot. I've never seen that happen before. I think we need to refocus our attention on what is going to bring us down as a country, and then pay a little bit more attention to what's happening in-house. But I think we live in an amazing, beautiful country, and I think we maybe took it for granted a little bit, and now we're threatened, and it's been amazing to watch Canadians come together, but we have to follow through with that. I know it's going to sound crazy, but what I'd really like to see is I'd like to see us go to the polls and elect a government, and then there's no question in my mind we are not going to have a majority government. It's going to be a minority, whether liberal or conservative, but I'd like to see the Prime Minister cross the floor and shake the hand of the opposition and say, let's put a united cabinet together. Let's fight this together as Canadians, and then we'll go back into our separate corners down the road. But let's come together as Canada right now, not as liberal or conservative. Let's come together as Canadians.
Okay, Debbie, appreciate the call.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Have you seen the attack ads? I'm sure that you have on both sides. I mean, basically, it's the Pierre Poilievre is the devil. That's basically the message. He's evil. He's Donald Trump. and he will destroy this country. And the Conservative ad on Carney is the same thing. And it even looks almost like the red that they use in the satanic coloring that they use. It's very odd. I mean, it's absolutely, it's American, but both are guilty of it. Not one mention of what they're going to do, either the Conservatives or the Liberals. Not one mention in those ads. And what they've done or the records or anything. It's all about this person is the devil. And if you elect this person, this country will be destroyed. The fear-mongering is unbelievable. And this is where we've landed, folks, politically. Not one mention of what either one will do, but just about how horrible the other is. Kim, hello. Hi, Kim.
Hi, good morning.
Hi there.
I got to agree with you. The advertisements are pathetic.
It's unbelievable.
On both sides, it's pathetic. And it just reminds me of the whole garbage that went on in the States.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It reminds me, well, we've been Americanized with this.
Yeah, and there's something, we're a totally different country. We're a resilient country.
Mm-hmm.
And to have any idea of our sovereignty being even stripped from us doesn't sit well with a lot of people, even all the younger ones, believe it or not. I've spoken to a lot of people about it. And they're in agreement. We need a proper leadership. We need somebody who's going to stand up there, okay? Mm-hmm. No tariffs. Let's go back to what we were doing to start with. But Trump's not going to allow that. We all know that. And we're just going to follow into the same old garbage. So yeah. I believe that the Carney will help us in the long scope of things.
Why do you say that? Why do you think Carney will help in the long scope of things?
I know there's a lot of rhetoric with him with his business and this and that. For me, I usually judge a book by its cover. And I'm not usually wrong. And my instincts tell me this man will have basically the balls to stand up against Trump, for that matter. I don't think he's going to cow down as quickly as Trump may think.
Why do you think Poilievre would back down?
Some of his things that he believes in, no, I don't know.
Like what? Like what?
Well, some of it, how would I put it to being diplomatic? Him believing that basically opposite of what the Liberal Party is going with as far as with Trump. I don't know.
But you give me one example, Kim.
What would be a good example? I guess for me, it's I don't know. I can't even put my finger on it.
Yeah. Okay, Kim, appreciate the call. I think that is unfortunately proof that attack ads work. Because Kim couldn't mention one point. She said Poilievre's just the opposite of the Liberals. And what say? No comment. No criticism of Kim. I'm just saying that I think that is quite common out there. According to somebody who sent me an email here, Sean rather, says the attack ads that I'm referring to are from Protecting Canada Group, not the Liberal Party, not to say they don't do the same. So I would say that sure, okay, I'm not, we could assume that this Protecting Canada group is spending a bunch of money, and where they're getting their money, I have no idea, but the message is certainly endorsed by the Liberals, I would dare say. 902-405-6000. What is on your mind today? Give us a call again, 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Mike's giving us a buzz. Hello, Mike.
Good morning, Todd. How are you doing?
Doing well. I can barely hear you. You sound a little muffled.
Well, hold on. One moment. Is that better?
Yeah, a little better. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be quick. Well, I believe Mr. Carney does gain some credibility in the fact that he was a significant role in doing monetary policy, as his role in the Bank of Canada governor is also as governor at the Bank of England. I think that does help him gain knowledge in terms of being fiscally conservative in terms of his maybe general outlook and being prudent in the nature of how much to be come out from the government purse in terms of basic social programs, what is generally be considered prudent, what is be considered perhaps maybe excessive. Naturally, both Poilievre and Mr. Carney have to recognize the fact that they have many significant issues to deal with, even notwithstanding the matter of what's going on across the border with the tariffs and other issues. But there's a matter of significant need for social housing starts across the country. The matter, of course, with election reform, and Mr. Trudeau sort of walked away from, I think, the first term of his office.
Yeah, sure did.
And other key areas as well. So, I mean, it's to be seen. But I think they both should be given an opportunity to provide a voice, sort of set away the negative ads for a moment, really look at their backgrounds, educate yourself, and then make your best educated judgment about whom you think is the best for the country.
Yeah, some good points, Mike. Thanks for the call, pal. Appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Bryce is a first-time caller. Hello, Bryce.
Hi, how are you doing today, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Good, not bad.
Great.
I'm a young man. I'm 25 years old. But I'd like to say that Canadian politics overall are terrible, no matter what side you're on. Right now in time, at least. And I wouldn't... again, do you have any input on that?
What's your question again? Canadian politics is horrible? Is that what's your question?
My question is why everybody is very negative towards what Trump is doing and his helping hand, as in we're classifying it as a trade war when we're really making it out to be a real war.
It is a real war.
Is it really?
Yeah, sure it is. Sure it is.
I wouldn't call it that. I'd be scared to call it that.
Why?
Myself,
Why? He wants to.
Yeah.
He wants this country dismantled. He wants to erase Canada. Is that not a war when you set your sights on a nation and you say I want to take that country over? Is that not a war?
Really, I wouldn't say.
Why, Bryce? He said it. He's on the record a million. His press secretary said it last week. Said we want Canada to be the 51st state. They're not making this up. They want
war.
Yes.
He's trying to help us economically.
Help us? How's he trying to help us, Bryce?
By developing our country.
So you're saying Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and says, I want to help Canada develop their country?
Well, it goes against a lot of the liberal idealizations.
Oh, Bryce, you're 25 years old. Come on, man. You know better than this. Seriously?
I followed Elon. I followed Trump on Twitter for 8-10 years.
So what's
I know
that?
Exactly what their ideologies are.
And
I'm on their side.
Well, you just did, didn't you?
When did I say that? I said,
based on your comments, you sound like you're on his side.
Well, that's something people do that's incorrect too. It's assumptions.
I'm sorry.
That.
Okay.
No, I'm not trying to offend you, and
I'm not offended.
Really not.
I'm not offended. I just don't agree with what you're saying.
Yes, I know, and there's another thing I'd like to touch on, if I could.
Sure.
The grouping. A lot of people group people like Americans or Canadians. What does that really mean individually? Like to contribute anything. It's something that always has a negative connotation now. Is when we are all grouping. All the Americans are against us. No, certain Americans might be. Who knows if I don't know Donald Trump. Do you? We don't know. But what he's done is he's only really said truthful things about the ways he's trying to conduct with Canada, conduct with Greenland. And the people that will draw his hand are actually us, ourselves.
So
and it seems like that to me right now.
So you're saying that Donald Trump loves Canada, wants the best for Canada, but we've misinterpreted all of this here in Canada, and we're all wrong, and that Trump is a good guy. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. No.
Yes, you did. But you did say that.
Oh, that's how you.
Okay. All right, Bryce. I'm not sure where else we're going to go. It sounds to me like you're pretty entrenched in Donald Trump's world.
I just hope for the future.
Okay. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
902-405-6000. Mike. Hello, Mike.
Is this me, Mike?
Yeah, it's you.
Hey, buddy. Listen, I don't know what's going on with all the Liberal voters. I think they all got blinders on just because Mark Carney's sitting in the new seat. What about all the people behind him, the whole clown posse that stood behind Trudeau for all them years and went along with, and they talk about, Poilievre's going to ruin our country. Our country is ruined, and it was done by the Liberals. They're Liberals. It was the party that the last 10 years. We didn't have a whole bunch of tents in our country 10 years ago. We didn't have people living on the streets like we do today. There was a few areas, but not like it is today. It's widespread across Canada.
Well, it's widespread across the whole Western world, Mike. This is not unique to Canada.
Yeah, no, I know, but I mean, It was like we've shut down all the programming, like Nova Scotia Hospital. These people need to be, whether they like it or not, they need to be in a place where they can be given their medications and taken care of.
Well, unfortunately, Mike, we can't incarcerate people against their will.
But I don't think that's incarceration.
You just said whether they need it or not. You said whether they want to or not. We need to put them in some type of institution. Is that not what you said? Well, that's incarceration, is it not, Mike? Is that not incarceration?
I don't think so, Todd. No, I think it's quite a bit different than being put behind bars. Well, I mean, the treatment and it's a much more civilized atmosphere than a jailhouse or a prison.
Well, I would bet if you could look at some of these institutions.
What's the alternative, Todd?
I don't know, but
letting this go. I mean, these people, they need help, and that's the only kind of help that they can right now. I mean, we've got, and again with the Liberals, these guys are promoting giving drug addicts drugs, give them free needles, give them free drugs. Like that's not the solution to addictions.
Okay, all right. I'm not. Listen, the solutions are hard to come by. They're hard to find, and I agree with you that those policies should be investigated. But I don't know if that means widespread rounding people up, and who makes a decision as to who gets sent in into these institutions or doesn't. Right? Somebody makes that decision.
Well, I think it kind of the way you're sort of wording it sounds a lot worse than what's in my head.
No, it's not worse. Somebody ultimately has to decide whether somebody is qualified to be institutionalized or not.
Well, when you say rounding people up, I think of the Holocaust. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about taking people and taking care of them and helping them and treat them and maybe get them so they're back out in society and living a good life. Like, I mean, that's not incarceration. I think that's just a little bit of love and care. I know it sounds harsh to say, listen, you don't have an alternative. But what are we going to do with the people that have mental health and addictions issues? Just leave them going like it's going now?
Yeah, I hear you.
The best solution is to get them into care and treatment. And, the government has turned their back on the treatment process that we had in this country for the longest time with programming that they've canceled.
Right.
Anyway, it's a long discussion, buddy. Back.
I appreciate it. I hear you, pal. I hear you. It's very complex. Thanks, Mike.
Time.
Okay, bud. Take care. Take care. Mark says this. I'm over time, but Mark says when Trump says he wants Canada to be a state, he's obviously joking, Todd. You take him way too literally. He's not joking, Mark. He has repeated it time and time and time and time again. His press secretary is saying it. All of these sycophants are echoing the same thing. He's not joking. Like, God almighty, like, what does he need to do to prove that he's not joking? He wants to eliminate Canada. That's a fact. Anyway, thanks for the calls, everybody. We'll talk more about the tariff situation with Paul MacKinnon of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission when we come back. All right, joining us now for a chat is Paul MacKinnon, CEO of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission. Paul, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time.
Hey, Todd. How are you today?
I'm well. Yourself?
I'm doing okay.
All right. So, my, oh my, we're doing okay, but businesses trying to deal with another issue on the coming out of COVID and now this, right? This tariff war. It's got to be frustrating, I would think, for many of your members.
Todd, it's never boring on Main Street, but you're exactly right. I think like a lot of other industries, I mean, we're not so much sector-based. We're really kind of people-based, and we have a lot of small independent businesses downtown, whether those are stores or restaurants. So, yeah, I think a lot of uncertainty and a lot of concern, obviously. But as you said, we've come through this with COVID and other, inflation, other economic shock. So there's kind of a wait-and-see approach at the moment. But, yeah, a lot of concern.
All right. So what are some ways that businesses are preparing to deal with this?
Well, certainly if you think about the restaurant sector in particular, I mean, they tend to be the ones that are always hit no matter what happens in the economy. That seems to be the first thing that's impacted. So I think a lot of them are doing things like looking at their menus, trying to see whether there's adjustments they want to make in terms of things like ingredients, maybe more Canadian-based ingredients than imports, that kind of thing. And restaurants, again, tend to be hit. If the overall economy isn't doing well, we're going to feel that in the restaurant sector right away. So, looking at cost-cutting measures and other things. The thing that we're really focused on is of course, just trying to provide good information for our business owners. Where can they go to find out what those impacts are going to be? But the other message we want to get out really all the time, but particularly now, is these are small, locally owned businesses, a lot of them, and supporting local is never a bad thing to do. So we really want to just reinforce that to the consumers.
Which businesses do you think might be the most vulnerable here?
Well, certainly ones I think that are more dependent on imported products, and again, particularly from the U.S. I mean, those are the ones that are going to be most vulnerable. But I think a lot of businesses really just they don't know what those impacts are going to look like. Again, it's a bit easier to figure out if you're in a particular sector that has that your product is going to the U.S. Maybe that's a bit easier. So I think for a lot of our businesses, they really don't know what those impacts are going to be. So it's a bit of a wait and see approach, but also just being proactive on their own side and trying to control their costs.
And the back and forth, I mean, on again, off again nature of all of this is just that's already old, right? With Trump, and that's the problem. Is moving forward, we don't know what's going to happen. The unpredictable nature of all of this adds to the problem.
Well, exactly, and I think we've heard this a lot over the last couple of weeks. I mean, the business sector dislikes uncertainty, and we've had nothing but uncertainty for a long time. But I think that's just the reality of where we are in our economy at the moment. There's been so much uncertainty, especially since 2020. So we're kind of used to it at this point. So I think businesses, I mean, the good news is I think a lot of businesses simply learned how to become more nimble and how to adapt through COVID. So that's going to stand them in good stead, I think, for the upcoming shocks that we're going to be seeing over the next little while.
All right. What type of supports would you like to see in place on behalf of the provincial, federal, and municipal governments?
Well, I think that we're looking at we want to see some good infrastructure improvements. We need to become a much more self-resilient economy, whether that's in Halifax or in Nova Scotia or in Canada. And so one of the things that we've been hearing, from people across the country, we talk a lot with other urban cores and downtowns. There really hasn't been kind of a solid infrastructure plan for downtowns and main streets. And I think that we'd like to see rolled out at all three levels of government is really an approach to see, what are those good infrastructure investments that we can make that make our downtowns more resilient. We've taken the work on in creating a new vision for downtown Halifax, which we produced about a year ago. We've been out shopping it around to all levels of government since then. And that really articulates a course for government investment and private sector investment. So if people want to learn more about that, it's on our website at downtownhalifax.ca. And with a federal election coming up, we'll be meeting with all the federal candidates and talking about our vision for downtown with that as well.
Is there a concern about tourism numbers and how this trade war and tariff war might impact tourism, visitors from the United States in particular?
Well, we do know that. So we've just recently come back to pre-pandemic levels of visitation, and a lot of that is driven by tourism and driven by events. So yes, there's a lot of concern. I mean, and again, it could be a good news, bad news kind of situation. So we are anticipating that we'll see more Canadians, say from Western Canada, coming east. So that's good. But if there's a general sense, an anti-American sense that prevails, and Americans no longer feel comfortable coming here, that's going to be bad for our tourism numbers. So that's kind of the fine line I think that we're looking to walk in the tourism industry. Is we want to encourage more Canadians to spend their dollars within Canada and come and explore the East Coast. But we still want Americans coming here, of course, as well. So the tourism industry has been really strong, particularly over the last year. So we definitely want to see that improve. But there's a lot of concern about that for sure.
How about taxation? We know the council is deliberating its tax rate as we speak. A little off topic, but still relevant. What are your thoughts on what the taxation and businesses are dealing with here?
Well, the good news is certainly at the provincial level, with the rollback of the provincial sales tax, that's really positive for our members, so they like that. Lots of concern about the municipal tax burden. And so the message we've really tried to put out to council, which is something I think that's resonating, is, assessments are going up, and the municipality can't control that, but what they can control is the tax rate. And our mayor ran on the idea of freezing the tax rate, so we'd like to see at least that. We'd love to see a rollback of the tax rate, but more realistically, if they can hold the commercial tax rates, that would be good. And I think there's lots of discussions about how they can do that.
Okay, Paul, appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
All right, take care. Paul MacKinnon, CEO of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission. When we come back, a chat with Claudia Chender. We'll be back. Claudia Chender is leader of the NDP here in Nova Scotia and leader of the official opposition and joins me for a chat. Claudia, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time, of course.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so there's no shortage of things to talk about, that's for sure, but something that we can start with. I suppose the provincial government announced that it'll provide $23 million in funding for transition houses that offer temporary shelter for women and children fleeing family violence. However, you feel as though that the funding it's not nearly enough, and it's been too long in the making, right?
Well, I want to start by saying it's a really important investment, and it will be really meaningful. But there's a few things. It remains to be seen if it's enough. It's certainly not covering the whole field. So I think it is what transition houses were asking for, but there are lots of other frontline organizations. It's not core funding, so it's time limited. It'll last a few years, which is good, but I think then they're going to be on the hunt again. And I think what's really important to note here for your listeners, Todd, is that we've been in the legislature for the last month debating a budget where the government puts forward its spending priorities. This money is not in that budget. Mm-hmm. So they waited until International Women's Day when, you had frontline organizations across the province really panicking about whether when the fiscal year ends on March 31st, they're going to have the money they need to do their programming. And I think it's a pretty callous approach to not budget that money, and particularly in light of the fatalities that we have seen. So 7 women have been murdered in the last several months, and one man, the father of one of the victims. And then to kind of pull it out of a hat, they say additional appropriations. So the money's important and it's good, and I think the way they went about it is just plain wrong.
Right. How do we determine how much money is needed for this whole issue? Because it's very complex, as you know. And how do we determine who should get the money and what the best way to tackle this would be? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, we have a Department of the Status of Women, we have a Justice Department, and we do increasingly have interdisciplinary tables within government who are looking at the Mass Casualty Commission in particular. The recommendations from that report, the recommendations from the Desmond report fatality are also really important. So I think we have the roadmap. I think we know those organizations. I think there's been a lot of inventory of those in the last few years. And then the question, of course, is the amount and what those reports say, and particularly Turning the Tide, the Mass Casualty Commission, is epidemic level funding. So, we obviously, as funders, government has to evaluate the efficacy of programs, but where we see those programs are working, so I know, it depends on different parts of the province, but for instance, transition houses in southwest Nova Scotia might cover catchments of hundreds of kilometers. And so they're going to need more outreach. They're going to need funding to go out and see people where they are. Whereas in Metro, you might have a higher concentration of service providers. And so it might be more around what they call sort of double staffing so that they can keep 24-hour shifts going, in places of safety. So I think those needs are going to be different. We also increasingly have a conversation around those organizations organizations who are working with men, so men who are likely to commit abuse or homicide, who have been identified by the justice system and who are almost always the victims of trauma themselves. How do we prevent this from happening? I think working with men is a big part of the answer to that question, and we have organizations who are doing it. So there's a lot of different folks doing really important work on the ground, and it's about seeing what's working and funding it appropriately. I met just a few months ago with New Leaf in Westville in Pictou County. And, they have a drop-in for men. It's very successful, but they have very little funding. They have an inaccessible space. So they can, there are folks that they can't accommodate or see. So there's all kinds of organizations that are just doing things on a shoestring, and if they were properly funded, could have such a greater impact.
Do you have concerns that with so many challenges that all governments face at all levels, certainly including the provincial government here in Nova Scotia, that this is not a priority and that some of these many other challenges overshadow this type of thing? And not to suggest that they should, but is that perhaps what's going on here?
Well, it's hard to say what this government's priorities are, Todd. I mean, we thought it was healthcare. Then during the election, we thought maybe it was cost of living. And suddenly we've discovered it's resource extraction. So on any given day, this government has a different priority. But I think we, as a province, determined in the wake of the Mass Casualty Commission and the Desmond fatalities that keeping women safe and alive has to be a priority of any government. And that's a complex issue, but also tackling that issue has a lot of benefit aside from just that terrible reality of what's needed. So we can intervene in education. We can make sure that people understand how to treat each other respectfully. We can certainly, if we want to take it down to dollars and cents, we can save money on law enforcement. We can save money on incarceration. We can save all kinds of money by, any kind of upstream intervention that keeps people healthy and safe. So I would say that these are the kind of issues that preempt everything else. If Nova Scotians are not alive to benefit from government services and actions, then we have a problem. So I think any conversation where this gets caught in what is a priority is the wrong conversation to be having. And back to my original point, I think that's why it's incredibly disturbing. And we have addressed this several times during this session that it wasn't in the budget. Like, why wouldn't this be in the budget? We know what's needed. So again, I think we're starting to see the action that we need. But we shouldn't have to drag this government kicking and screaming. And it's not a special interest. It's not a niche issue. Mm-hmm. This is an issue that impacts everyone.
All right. So on the priorities and the moving target, I guess, some might suggest that what's happening in the United States would be a good, an excuse is not the right word, but a good reason to pivot and to look at perhaps ways in which we can generate our or rather develop our resources and respond to what's happening globally. What's your response to that?
Well, certainly I think if we want to open up that conversations, it is well within the government's purview to do that, but that's not what we've seen. So we have an immediate existential threat from the United States, and there's a lot of things that can be done immediately. One that the province has taken action on is interprovincial trade, but there are many others. So changing procurement policies, letting workers in impacted industries know what to expect in the case of the rapid imposition of tariffs, which may or may not happen on any given day. And, helping our traditional resource sectors, so farming and forestry and fishing, understand how the government's going to help them to diversify their markets and to protect their business in the case of a trade war. We've seen precious little on any of that. And yet we have seen this idea that it is of immediate urgency such that we can't even have a proper debate about it to lift resource bans when no one's even knocking at our door, Todd. Like, it's not like there's some big natural gas company that's saying, please lift this ban so we can frack. Like, it's not happening. So I really think it's a tactic. Should we talk about natural resources in this province? Absolutely. It's a national conversation. We should talk about it. But the idea that we lift a ban first and then we have a conversation after is just the wrong way around. That's not the way those bans came into place. They came into place through dialogue and science and engagement. And if they're going to come off, they should come off the same way. And the idea that it's so urgent that we never heard about it once during the election, and that, the public needed to be informed via a full-page ad in the Chronicle Herald, I think they're discounting the intelligence of Nova Scotians when they use those kind of tactics, frankly.
All right. What's changed then? If you say that studies and research and science were the reasons why the ban were necessary in the first place, what has changed?
Well, we don't know what's changed. So certainly the argument we're hearing from the government is energy security and national security. And I think that, sure, that's a reason to revisit it. Let's talk about it. It may be that, geology has changed. I don't know. The reality is we haven't been measuring these things. With uranium is a great example. They're saying in order to understand it, we have to take off the ban. Well, there's an argument that the government could be doing that kind of geological mapping themselves. This is what we've done in the offshore. Like, we have figured out where the resource is, and then we have put those resources to market. That's an approach maybe we would want to take with this kind of resource extraction if there was a consensus and a social license to do it. But we're not hearing anything about any of that. We're hearing drill, baby, drill, take away the bans, open everything up to exploration by large multinational corporations, I should mention. The language is energy security, which again, I think there's a conversation to be had, good paying jobs, there's a conversation to be had, but it's not clear what the long-term benefit to Nova Scotians or to the Nova Scotian economy would be. In the case of mining, we have a terrible mining royalty regime. We make very little money when our resources are mined here as a government. So all of that needs to be looked at, needs to be discussed, needs to be in the public realm. And even the Wheeler report on fracking recommended, keep on looking at it, keep on doing the science, see what that reveals. But we haven't done any of this. And I think it's, I think they're trying to pull a bit of a bait and switch, honestly, Todd. I think everyone's worried about tariffs, and so I think they feel like that's an easy way to slip this through. And they put legislation on the table without even consulting the Mi'kmaq chiefs. And certainly they have a constitutional right to be consulted. So I think this has been a sort of sloppy example of lawmaking, frankly.
Okay, you use the term "drill, baby, drill." That's. I don't think Tim Houston's ever said that. Has he ever used that term, that phrase?
No.
Okay, well, so why did you coin it that way? Was that so that people would make the connection with Trump?
Well, I think that it is the same. I think what we're hearing is not, let's have a conversation about resource extraction. The message has not been, let's talk about whether these bans make sense anymore. The conversation has not been, let's do some more research and let's have a few engagement sessions around the province and see how people feel about this. It has been, we need to lift all of these bans right now and start exploring for these natural resources. That is the same energetic tone as drill, baby, drill. We hear this. We hear this on the floor of the legislature. This is the key to our economic future. If you want a good life for your children, we have to do this. That's pretty hyperbolic considering this government never mentioned it until 2 months ago. It is kind of a shocking change of tune. when, we've never heard about it before. This is, they had a whole term where they never talked about resource extraction, where they never talked about fracking. And by the way, if the conversation's about critical minerals, Todd, we have a critical mineral strategy. We don't have a ban on that. So it's totally possible to do that. So I think there is a very kind of political push behind this to use the excuse of uncertainty and economic challenge to push forward what was essentially never part of this government's agenda.
Okay, Claudia, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Claudia Chender, leader of the NDP. Lori Turnbull when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, joining us for a chat is Lori Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. Lori, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time as always.
Hey, Todd. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you got it. So 85.9% voted for Carney in this thing yesterday, or last week, I should say. Pretty resounding. I don't know that you need to say much more than that. The Liberals have spoken, right? They've got their person.
They've got their person. I think this is much better for the Liberals than it would have been if it was truly a race to the end between Carney and Freeland, that it wasn't really clear who had the sense of gravity and the kind of that real pull in the party. Like I think given the times, given that Carney's going to be in election very soon, it's much better for him to just have this clear result and just get on with it.
All right, when might we see an election? That's on everybody's mind right now. What are your thoughts? I suppose you can guess like the rest of us.
I can guess. I would think it'll be sometime not tomorrow or the next day, but probably next week is my guess, because March 24th is when he has to go back to the House, and he can't go back to the House because he doesn't have a seat. So my guess is he closes the plug next week.
Yeah, I suppose he'd kind of like to bask and be in the Prime Minister for a little while, but there's no time, right? That's one of the challenges here, isn't it?
No basking. No basking, even though he put on a friggin' clinic in this leadership race, and honestly, it seemed to me he didn't break a sweat at all, right? He sat back, watched the donations come in, watched the endorsements come in. Meanwhile, his opponents couldn't punch through at all. But now, he kind of hits the ground running right away, because I think it would be disastrous for him politically to go to the House without having a seat in it. To sit in the gallery and watch everybody else do the work, that would be a nightmare. Why give Poilievre any more time to try to define you before you can define yourself? Just get to it. And so I think he will. Okay.
What about the process of being sworn in or the transition? What should we expect this week, and should it happen this week?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think again, given the Trump situation, given that we're in an active mess, I think that Trudeau has been doing the work and going out there and being a lot more active, I think, than you typically see an outgoing Prime Minister be. But I think now that there's a new person selected, especially, again, given that huge mandate that Carney has from the Liberals, Trudeau really has no legitimacy now to be out there saying anything on behalf of the country, right? That's not a slight at him. It's just there can only be one Prime Minister, and Carney is clearly the Prime Minister designate. So Trudeau's done. He's got to bounce. So I think we won't see much time go by before Carney is sworn in, and there'd be no reason to. There'd be no reason to delay it. And their teams have been talking already. The public service has been preparing for this day. They've known it's coming. So, yeah, this is what we're actually very good at this in Canada. We're very good at transition. The public service is very good at jumping in and making that next Prime Minister they can hit the ground running. And so I think that's where we're at.
All right, Carney suggested that change is necessary, and I guess softly criticizing his predecessor and the previous cabinet. That's a tough thing to do, I would think. Is how are you critical of the party in which you are still a member of, and will still be relying on people around you? That's a tough dance, I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been doing it kind of softly. He's said things like, that we need to be more fiscally responsible. We need to spend less. He talks about kind of breaking up the budget in terms of operational expenditure and then things that are more along the lines of growth and investment. And so I think that kind of stuff, he can put forward a very different idea about economic management and sticking to a fiscal anchor without directly saying, okay, well, Trudeau and Freeland screwed this up. He doesn't have to say that, but he can find ways of putting his own foot forward in a way that doesn't look like it's continuity.
Okay, so what do you think? What can we expect? I guess in the interim between now and when an election is called, does Carney do anything that appears prime ministerial, or is he just simply going to wait until the writ is dropped and we get into campaign mode? What can we expect in the coming couple of weeks? I guess.
Well, the first thing I'm wondering is what he's going to do with his cabinet, because he is going to be sworn in, and he's going to have to swear some kind of cabinet in. And whether that's going to be people from the Trudeau era or that's going to be some people of his own or what, it seems to me he's going to have to reward the people who helped him get where he is, because he didn't do this by himself. He's probably going to have Jolie in cabinet, Champagne in cabinet, people who lent their networks to him, participated in the fundraising, all that stuff. But then beyond that, is he going to bring anybody in that makes it look like his own? Is he going to bring in new names that people say, oh, wow, okay, now this person's interested in being in politics because of Carney, which would put his own brand forward, I think, in a way that would be more impactful. That said, how much time do people spend thinking about who the cabinet ministers are? I don't know, right? I think about it all the time, but I'm not sure that the composition of cabinet is going to be something that really sways people's votes. Mm-hmm. But then beyond that, I think he's got opportunity to look prime ministerial during the writ period, because he's going to have to respond to Trump and Trump's musings about tariffs and different things like that. And there are different times that Trump says he's going to do something, right? Like April 2nd, he's potential for a new suite of tariffs to come in at that point. And he talks about, maybe tariffs will go up, but they won't go down. So I think Trump is going to create a constant flow of things that Carney's going to have to respond to. And so that Carney's not going to have to work too hard to look like he's decisive.
Selecting a new cabinet and going through all of that goes into that, I would think that would seem like a bit of a waste of time at this point, would it not?
Well, my thing is, he has to do it, right? Like he has to do it. He has to show what government under Mark Carney would look like. And so if he wants to at least indicate, here are some star candidates, here are some people who are vouching for me as the leader, this would be a time to do that. I agree with you. It's not going to be a moment for him, I think, to start really having a cabinet that's built and is going to start doing things, because there's no time to do it. But I think taking this as purely a political moment to show who's on Team Carney, I think he might as well use that moment, because they all count. He's got a short run right here.
Okay, what about the carbon tax Carney kind of slogan that kind of rolls off the tongue, I suppose? Do you think that'll be effective? No, I don't, because I think that the people who are going to be persuaded by that are people who already aren't going to vote for Carney, right? Like Poilievre and Carney in some ways are appealing to two blocks and then trying to get to the people who haven't decided who they're going to vote for yet. And so yelling carbon tax Carney is going to be helpful to Poilievre in terms of ginning up his own base, possibly recruiting some donations. So he'll keep doing it. But is that going to move a voter who is looking carefully at the candidates and thinking, who am I going to vote for, because I really want to make sure that we stay a sovereign country who is not economically destroyed? I don't think those kinds of slogans work in that moment. Anyway, you crack it up, it's not the matchup that Pierre Poilievre was looking for here. I think things got a lot worse and measurably worse when it comes to trying to deal with Carney than he would have been if Trudeau would have stuck around, I think. What are your thoughts?
Oh, 100%. He was looking to have this tangle with Trudeau, not with Carney. And I think if it weren't for the Trump issue, Poilievre might have been more successful at saying Carney is just like Trudeau. But Trump amplifies the things that Carney brings to the table in terms of his experience as the Bank of Canada governor. And so I think Poilievre has lost his narrative. And they're pivoting, they're switching things around, but it's not the race that Poilievre had been gearing up for.
All right, so how nasty do you think an election campaign will get?
Very.
Yeah.
Very, very, very. People are stressed out to begin with because of Trump, and I think each of them is going to, like Poilievre and Carney, are going to try to make us afraid of the other. So Carney will say that Poilievre is just like Trump, and Poilievre will say that Carney can't be trusted because he's got all these business interests that he hasn't told us about, and he's actually a bad guy, he doesn't understand you, blah, blah, blah. So it's all going to be about fear. And again, like, we are feeling scared anyway because of everything that's going on.
All right. So the fact that Trump has vocalized publicly that he doesn't like Poilievre, he doesn't think he's a mega guy. Is that good for Poilievre? Is that enough for the Poilievre base to say, look, clearly this guy, he's not like Donald Trump because Trump doesn't even endorse him or like him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think it cuts two ways because some of the people who support Poilievre don't necessarily hate Trump. And then some of them who were thinking about supporting him, and when you saw his base grow, like his support grow to over 40% in public opinion polls, that's an indication that a lot of people are, not necessarily people who typically vote conservative, but a lot of people were thinking about voting conservative. But of course, that was pre the announcement from Trudeau. So I think it kind of, again, like it cuts both ways. He's trying to figure out how to keep his base together, but the Trump question is a divider for Poilievre and his supporters, whereas for Carney, he doesn't have to worry about anybody who might be sympathetic to Trump, right? And Carney can just ignore that because he knows where his support's coming from, and it's not from that community.
And lastly, election fatigue. I mean, my gosh, we've been through how many elections now here in the country and in the province of Nova Scotia? We've had a provincial election, we have municipal elections, and I think that every time we have more elections, the electorate kind of gets burned out from this. What are your thoughts?
Of course they do. I mean, it's a lot of now what, and thinking about why all of these things make a difference and why you should show up every time and getting engaged. If you really get engaged in a campaign and you're listening to everything and you're taking, putting together your thoughts on who to vote for and all that, it's work. And at some point, people are like, come on, just do something. People make decisions and go do what you need to do. And so, there's always a risk that people are just kind of tune out. Although, if I'm a betting person, I would say this federal election is going to have a higher turnout than normal because just the stakes are so high.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Lori. Appreciate your insight as always.
Thanks, Todd.
All right, take care. Lori Turnbull, Dalhousie University political science professor. Halifax councillor, and they're saying encampments here to stay until more options are available. Patty Cuttell joins us when we come back. All right, Patty Cuttell joins us. District 11, Spryfield, Sambro Loop, Prospect Road, HRM councillor, of course. Patty, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Happy Monday.
Indeed, happy Monday. All right, so the Halifax Regional Municipalities as encampments are the only option for many people, despite the risks. This, while a fire at a city-designated encampment beneath the McDonald Bridge recently in Halifax ignites some concerns about encampments. Councillors and the mayor say they are here to stay. Reading a CTV story on this. So are there any encampments in your district, Patty?
There's not. I don't have any designated encampments, but I certainly have a number of individuals who are sleeping rough within my district at any given point in time. Okay,
so I guess for those who say that do away with these encampments, let's get rid of them. Let's make they're nice or whatever. What's your response to that?
It's complicated. It's not that easy. So by getting rid of the designated encampments, and I want to be specific here, right? HRM has designated spots where people are able to set up a tent and stay. And there's people who are sleeping rough throughout other parts of the municipality, and those are two very different things. So, the designated encampments, that was our response to trying to manage a situation that was getting out of control for a number of reasons. We have a housing affordability crisis on our hands. We also have a lack of health supports for people who, for whatever reason, and then there's multiple different reasons, each case is unique, simply aren't able to, they're not candidates for housing until they can resolve some of the other underlying issues. And that's not everybody. I mean, there's some people who are finding themselves homeless. It really is an affordability issue, or they've been rent evicted, or again, there's a whole, each case is unique. So by designating locations, HRM was able to provide some supports and put some management in place, not only for the safety and security of those staying in encampments, but also for communities around our municipality. You know, and in wintertime, the fire is most likely a result of people trying to keep warm. And no, that's not a preferred scenario. It's not what we want to see. It just happens to be where we're at right now until we can come up with some of these other solutions.
What type of time horizon do you think is realistic? And I suppose if you had that answer, then you would be probably doing other things. But what type of time horizon do you think that we're looking at realistically until we have other options?
Well, it's twofold, in my opinion. One is having appropriate housing, like suitable housing for people. And the other part of that is having the health supports that people need. You know, it's not like we're not quite at the point of some other cities in North America, but, you know, addictions plays a role in some of this, in some cases, and as well as other health issues, mental health issues, and people need viable supports, and that's not always as simple as just providing an apartment. People need to be successful in that environment, and some people need, support to be successful.
Do you think at some point we'll have a HRM without encampments? Is that, or are they here to stay?
I hope they're not here to stay. That's certainly not my preference. I know we've always had people sleeping rough. Before the pandemic, which really kind of shone a light on this issue in a different way. There were people sleeping rough, and we've had organizations in the city like Morse, the Mobile Outreach Street Health Team, who had a very they were very supportive of that community of people. So, but they weren't. It was hidden. I would say it was hidden homelessness. And certainly not on the scale that we're seeing now, which is being exacerbated by, the things I mentioned, especially around rent evictions, one part of it. But, so I think to some degree, there will be people who, choose to sleep rough. But when we look at the scale of the problem right now, it's my hope that with collaboration between the provincial government and the federal government, as well as support from the municipality, that the situation will get better and we won't always need encampments.
Patty, appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Todd.
All right, take care. You as well. Patty Cuttell, District 11, Spryfield, Sambro Loop, Prospect Road. This story, the military officials from more than 30 nations are expecting to take part in Paris talks tomorrow on the creation of an international security force for Ukraine. A French military official says an international force would aim to dissuade Russia from launching another offensive after any ceasefire comes into effect. The long list of participants will also include Asia and other nations joining the talks remotely. So lots of high-level conversation going on about what's happening in Ukraine right now, and there's a meeting, of course, with Zelensky and Trump after that crazy meeting, this last one in the White House, which resulted in that dust-up, which was so talked about, including on this talk show. So we shall see how things go, but obviously everybody wants peace in Ukraine, there's no doubt. But it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. I'd like to thank Vanessa Van Ness on the other side of the glass of the control boards, doing a fine job as always. And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. We appreciate it very much. We're back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.